have brought you a true and scary story once again. You will enjoy the whole story if you like my stories. Please subscribe to the channel so that you can watch every story with interest. Watch the full story and start the story now. Emma sat alone in her office, staring at the computer screen as the clock struck 11:45 p.m. The building was quiet, too quiet. All her co-workers had already left hours ago, and she was the only one still working on the 21st floor. The silence pressed against her ears, broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioner and the clicking of her keyboard. She rubbed her tired eyes and let out a sigh. Finally done, she whispered to herself, saving her last file. Emma stood up, grabbed her bag, and glanced around the empty office one more time. The rows of cubicles looked strange in the dim light, like shadowy shapes waiting for her to leave. She turned off her desk lamp and walked toward the exit. The hallway outside was colder than the office, with only one long flickering light above. The buzzing sound of the light made the silence worse. Her footsteps echoed against the marble floor, bouncing back to her as if someone else was walking right behind her. She stopped and turned around. No one was there. Trying to shake off the chill crawling up her spine, Emma pressed the elevator button. The digital screen above the door glitched, showing numbers that jumped strangely, 17, 20, 19, then back to 21, before finally landing on 21. With a loud ding, the elevator doors creaked open. Inside, the elevator looked normal, but one of the ceiling lights flickered like it was struggling to stay alive. The steel walls reflected her face in a distorted way, making her reflection look slightly wrong. Emma frowned and stepped inside, pressing the button for the ground floor. As the doors slowly slid shut, she suddenly had the unsettling feeling that she wasn't leaving the office. She was entering something else. Something she shouldn't. The elevator doors slid shut with a metallic thud, and for a moment, Emma was surrounded by silence. But just before the doors closed completely, she thought she saw something move in the hallway. A shadow at the very end near the corner. Her heart skipped, but when she peeked again, the hallway was empty. Inside the elevator, she tried to calm herself. "You're just tired," she whispered under her breath, clutching her bag tightly. The numbers above the elevator door began to count down slowly. 20, 19, 18. Suddenly, the elevator stopped with a jolt. The lights inside flickered, and the air felt heavier, colder. Emma frowned, pressing the ground floor button again, but nothing happened. Then, with a slow shudder, the elevator doors opened. Not to the lobby, not to another floor filled with offices, but to a long, empty hallway she didn't recognize. The hallway was dark, lit only by one flickering yellow bulb at the far end. The walls looked old, stained, and cracked, as if no one had walked there in decades. A low hum echoed faintly, like distant machinery working underground. Emma hesitated, frozen in place. She was sure this floor wasn't supposed to exist. She had worked in this building for months and had never seen anything like it. She glanced at the panel inside the elevator. The display didn't show any floor number at all, just a blank red screen. A chill ran down her spine as she stepped closer to the door. Her reflection in the metal walls seemed to lag behind her movements, as if it wasn't keeping up. The hallway outside looked endless, stretching into the dark, but what unsettled her most was the faint sound she now heard. Footsteps. Soft, slow, deliberate, echoing down the hallway. "Hello," Emma called out nervously, her voice trembling. The footsteps stopped. And then, after a long silence, they started again, this time moving faster, closer, directly toward her. Emma's breath hitched as she slammed the closed door button over and over, her fingers trembling. The elevator doors shut just in time, but not before she saw someone, standing in the darkness at the very end of the hallway. The elevator doors finally sealed shut, and Emma's chest rose and fell in sharp, shaky breaths. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the closed doors, praying they would not open again. For a few seconds, everything was quiet except for the hum of the elevator cables above. Then, with a sudden lurch, the elevator started moving down again. The display panel flickered. 17, 15, 14. But instead of calming her, it made her more uneasy. Every time the numbers changed, the light above her head flickered as if the elevator itself was struggling to work. Emma pressed her hand against the cold steel wall, trying to steady herself. But that's when she noticed something that made her freeze. Her reflection in the polished elevator door wasn't right. It was her face, yes, but her reflection wasn't copying her movements exactly. When Emma tilted her head, the reflection hesitated, then followed a second later. When she lifted her hand, the reflection's hand twitched unnaturally, like a glitch in a broken video. Her heart hammered in her chest. "What the hell?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The elevator dinged. Emma jumped. The doors began to open slowly, screeching like rusty hinges. She braced herself for another dark hallway. But this time, it opened to the lobby. The soft glow of fluorescent lights filled the space, and the security guard at the front desk was visible from where she stood. Relief washed over her like a wave. She almost laughed. "Thank God," she whispered, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. But as she stepped forward to exit, the overhead lights in the lobby flickered once. Just once. And in that brief flash, Emma saw something that froze her blood. In the reflection of the glass lobby doors ahead, she wasn't alone. Behind her, standing inside the elevator, was a pale woman in a torn dress with hollow, black eyes staring directly at her. The lights flickered again, and the figure was gone. Emma stumbled out of the elevator, her knees shaking. But the moment her feet touched the marble floor of the lobby, she heard the elevator doors close behind her with a sharp metallic slam. And the security guard, who had been watching the monitors, was staring at her like he had just seen a ghost. Emma tried to calm herself as she walked toward the lobby doors, but the security guard's face made her stop. His eyes were wide, his mouth slightly open, as if he had seen something he couldn't explain. "Are you okay?" Emma asked nervously, clutching the strap of her bag. The guard didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowly turned his computer screen toward her. On the monitor, the live feed from the lobby security camera played back. Emma's stomach dropped. The footage showed her clearly stepping into the elevator upstairs on the 21st floor. She stood there, waiting as the doors closed. But then, on the next camera feed, the elevator doors opened in the lobby, and it was empty. Emma wasn't there. Her breath caught in her throat. That's impossible," she whispered. The guard, still pale, rewound the footage and showed her again. The same thing happened. She entered the elevator, the doors closed, but when it reached the lobby, no one came out. The elevator was empty. "But I just walked out of there," Emma stammered, her voice trembling. The guard swallowed hard, his hand shaking as he pointed to another monitor. "Look," he whispered. On a different angle, the security feed showed something else. When the elevator doors closed on the 21st floor, there was a flicker, like static running across the screen. For less than a second, a shadowy figure appeared behind Emma. A tall, pale silhouette with hollow eyes, standing so close it seemed to breathe down her neck. Emma's body went cold. She felt her stomach twist into knots as her hands shook uncontrollably. That can't be real." The guard leaned in closer to the screen. "I've been working here 10 years, he muttered. "And I've never seen the elevator do that." His voice cracked slightly as he replayed the footage in slow motion. Emma forced herself to look again. This time, when the elevator doors opened in the lobby on the screen, the camera picked up something the human eye couldn't see. A faint, ghostly outline of her own figure, like smoke fading into nothing. She wasn't just missing from the footage. It was as if she had never existed at all. Emma's hands shook as she stepped back from the monitors. She felt dizzy, her head spinning, as if the ground beneath her wasn't real anymore. The security guard quickly grabbed his walkie-talkie. "Control, this is lobby security. We have a problem with the elevator. Possible malfunction, possible." He stopped mid-sentence, glancing at Emma with fear in his eyes. "Possible missing person." The walkie-talkie crackled, but no one answered. Only static hissed back. Emma hugged her bag tightly, her voice barely steady. Please just tell me what's going on. Why does the camera show me disappearing? The guard swallowed hard. He didn't want to scare her more, but he couldn't hide it. People say this building isn't normal. Some nights, the elevator stops on floors that aren't supposed to exist. I never believed it, until now. Emma's lips trembled. That's insane. I was in the elevator. I came out. You saw me. But even as she said it, her own voice sounded weak. The more she looked at the screen, the more she doubted herself. Did she really walk out? Or did something else walk out in her place? The guard pulled up the audio feed recorded inside the elevator. Maybe this will clear it up. He clicked play. At first, it was normal. The sound of Emma's shoes on the elevator floor, the hum of the machinery, the faint buzzing of the flickering light. Then, a few seconds later, the recording picked up something else. A whisper. It was faint but clear enough to chill the blood. A raspy voice repeating the same word, over and over. Emma. 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 Emma's heart dropped. She covered her mouth with her hand, shaking her head violently. No. No, that's not real. That's not. The guard froze when the whisper turned into a sharp, high-pitched scream that cut through the speakers like nails on metal. The sound was so loud it distorted the audio before falling back into complete silence. The guard stopped the recording immediately. His hand trembled as he looked at her. Whatever's inside that elevator, he whispered. It wasn't just you. The scream on the recording still echoed in Emma's ears, even though the audio had been stopped. She hugged her arms around herself, her body trembling as if she had just stepped into ice water. The guard replayed the recording once more, slower this time, but the whisper was still there. Clearer. More deliberate. It wasn't just calling her name. It was almost inviting her. Emma, come down. Emma's throat went dry. Come down? She repeated in a whisper, her voice breaking. The guard leaned closer to the monitor. His eyes narrowed as he clicked into the elevator's tracking system, which showed each stop the elevator made. Normally, the log should list only the floors pressed by the passenger, but what appeared on the screen made his face go pale. The elevator had stopped once after Emma pressed ground. A floor that wasn't supposed to exist. Between the 12th and the 14th floor. There was another stop. Logged as 13. The guard muttered under his breath. That can't be. There is no 13th floor in this building. They skipped it when it was built. Emma's stomach twisted. But it says it right there. The guard clicked again, pulling up the building's blueprint on his system. He scrolled through the architectural files. Every floor was labeled clean and precise, except for the missing one. No plans, no details. Just a gap. Emma shook her head violently. No. No, I pressed ground. That's all. I never touched anything else. The guard turned slowly toward her. His voice was low, serious. But the elevator did. It chose for you. The room fell into heavy silence. Only the hum of the lobby lights filled the space, flickering once, as if reacting to the very word 13. Emma felt her heart hammer against her ribs. She couldn't tell if she was awake or trapped in some kind of nightmare. You're saying I went to a floor that doesn't exist? The guard looked her straight in the eyes, his face grim. You didn't just go there, he said slowly. Something from that floor followed you back. The guard's words clung to Emma's mind like poison. Something from that floor followed you back. Her hands shook as she gripped the counter for balance. No, this is insane. It's just a glitch. A mistake in the system. But the guard didn't look convinced. His jaw tightened as he grabbed a small ring of keys and pulled out a worn brass one. He stared at the elevator across the lobby, its silver doors reflecting the faint glow of the overhead lights. I need to check it, he muttered. Emma's eyes widened. You're not serious. You saw the footage. You heard the voice. You think going back in there is a good idea? The guard didn't answer. He walked toward the elevator, each step echoing sharply in the quiet lobby. His reflection stretched unnaturally long in the polished marble floor, almost as if it didn't quite match his body. Emma hesitated, torn between running for the exit and following him. But something inside her, curiosity, fear, or maybe the strange whisper still echoing in her head, pulled her forward. The guard slid the brass key into a hidden slot beneath the elevator buttons. With a faint click, the panel lit up differently. A button Emma had never seen before appeared, 13. Her stomach dropped. "There it is," the guard whispered, his face pale under the flickering lobby light. "The floor that doesn't exist." Emma shook her head furiously. "No. Don't. Just leave it. Please." But the guard's hand hovered over the button, trembling. "If people have been disappearing, if that's where they're going, then I have to see it." Before Emma could stop him, his finger pressed the button. The elevator groaned like something ancient had just awakened. The lights dimmed, the air turned cold, and the doors slid open. Inside, the small space looked normal, but when Emma glanced at the reflective walls, her heart froze. Her reflection wasn't alone. Standing just behind her reflection's shoulder was a pale, hollow-eyed figure, smiling as if it had been waiting. The guard stepped inside. The doors began to close, and the elevator started descending, straight to floor 13. The elevator rattled as it descended, making Emma grip the handrail tightly. Her chest rose and fell in sharp breaths, and every second felt longer than the last. The guard stood beside her, jaw clenched, but she noticed his hand trembling against the keys he still held. The display panel above them glitched as the numbers ticked down. 11. 12. Then, instead of skipping to 14 like every elevator she had ever seen, there it was. 13. The elevator screeched to a stop. For a moment, Emma thought the power had died. The lights flickered until only one weak bulb hummed overhead. Then, with a groaning metallic scrape, the doors began to open. What lay beyond wasn't like any floor Emma had ever seen in the building. The hallway stretched long and narrow, covered in dust thick enough to coat the air. The carpet was torn, shredded like claw marks had ripped through it. Old office chairs and broken desks lay scattered in pieces. The walls were cracked, peeling black with mold. And the silence, an unbearable silence, was broken only by a faint dripping sound somewhere in the distance. The guard shone his flashlight into the darkness. The beam cut through the dust, revealing faded signs on the walls. The lettering was too worn to read fully, but Emma could make out fragments. Records. Restricted. Do not enter. Her heart pounded in her chest. She whispered, "This place, it looks abandoned. Like no one's been here for years." The guard's voice was low. "Maybe no one's meant to." Emma froze when she realized something. The air was too cold. Her breath fogged in front of her face, and she heard it again. The sound that haunted her since the recording. Footsteps. Slow. Dragging. Coming from somewhere deeper down the hallway. Emma gripped the guard's arm. "Do you hear that?" He nodded, flashlight shaking slightly. "We're not alone." Then faintly from the darkness ahead, came a voice, raspy, broken, but clear enough to freeze Emma's blood. "Emma." She staggered back, her knees weak. That voice wasn't just calling her. It was waiting for her. Emma's breath came out in sharp gasps, her chest tightening as the voice echoed again through the empty corridor. "Emma." It was faint, almost broken, but it sounded far too close. The guard raised his flashlight, the beam shaking as it cut through the swirling dust. "Stay behind me," he muttered, his voice tight with fear. Emma tried to move, but her legs felt heavy, like the floor was pulling her down. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she clutched her bag tightly to her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run back into the elevator. But when she glanced over her shoulder, the doors were already sliding shut. They were trapped. The guard moved cautiously forward, the light bouncing across broken furniture and cracked walls. The sound of the dripping water grew louder, but so did the footsteps, slow, dragging, deliberate. Then the flashlight beam froze on something. At the far end of the hallway, shrouded in shadow, stood a figure. A woman. Emma's stomach twisted violently as her eyes adjusted. The figure wore a pale, torn dress, its fabric stained and faded like it had been buried for years. Her head was tilted slightly to the side, her long dark hair covering half her face. But what made Emma's blood run cold was the familiarity. It wasn't just a woman. It was her. Her own face. Her own body. Pale, hollow-eyed, and lifeless, like a twisted reflection of herself pulled from a grave. The guard's breath hitched. Do you see that? Emma couldn't answer. Her throat locked, her knees buckled. The pale version of her tilted its head further, almost unnaturally, like a broken doll. Its lips moved slowly, forming words Emma couldn't hear. Then all at once it smiled. A wide, unnatural smile that stretched too far across its face. Emma stumbled back, her scream caught in her throat. That's me. The guard yanked her arm, pulling her backward as the figure suddenly twitched, jerking one step closer. The overhead light at the end of the hallway burst with a sharp pop, plunging everything into deeper darkness. And in that instant, Emma's pale double vanished. Gone. But the footsteps hadn't stopped. They were closer now. Much closer. The footsteps were getting closer. Too close. The sound echoed off the cracked walls, chasing Emma and the guard as they stumbled backward. Emma's heart pounded in her chest like a drum. Her voice broke into a whisper. It's coming for me. The guard gripped her wrist tightly. Don't look back. Run. They bolted toward the elevator, their footsteps crunching against broken glass and torn carpet. The hallway seemed longer now, stretching endlessly, but at last, the metallic doors came into view, half shut as if waiting for them. The guard slammed his hand against the door open button, and with a painful screech, the doors slid apart. They rushed inside, both of them gasping for breath. Emma hit the ground button over and over, her finger trembling. The elevator groaned, shuddered, then began to move. Slowly. Too slowly. Emma leaned against the back wall, trying to breathe, but something in the polished steel caught her eye. The reflections. At first, it was normal, her and the guard both pale with fear. But then her reflection twitched, lagging behind, just like before. And then it smiled. Emma froze. Her real face was pale, terrified, but her reflection in the steel wall was grinning wide. Its hollow eyes locked on hers. The guard noticed her expression. Emma? What is it? She couldn't speak. She only raised her shaking hand and pointed to the reflection. The guard turned to look, and his face drained of color. In the reflection, there weren't two people in the elevator. There were three. Behind them, towering in the corner, was a pale woman in the torn dress. The same figure they saw on the 13th floor. Her eyes were black voids, her grin stretched impossibly wide. Emma's scream ripped through the small space as she slammed her fists against the doors. Open! Open! The elevator dinged. The doors slid apart, revealing the bright, normal lobby once again. The guard rushed out, pulling Emma with him. She stumbled onto the marble floor, gasping in relief. But as the elevator doors began to close behind them, Emma looked one last time at the steel walls inside. Her reflection was still there, smiling. And this time it didn't disappear.